All right, so it is 3:30 on my end, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Odalis Taveras, and I am a professional development specialist here at GPA. Turned on my camera so that you can put a face with a name. I've been in education now for a little over 16 years, and half of those have been in the online and blended environment. So I'm very excited to share with you some of the things that I've learned along the way and research and all kinds of things to help you with your journey in blended learning education. I know with me, I have for our academy, so I will let her introduce herself and then see if you could go ahead and introduce yourself. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Hey there, Odalis. You broke up just a little bit, but I think you said go ahead and introduce myself. So I will. I'm the principal at the Academy here at GPA. So excited to be here and join you ladies this afternoon.
And can you hear me? It's Tracy.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm Tracy Heinisch. I am the Assistant Executive Director at a service agency in Pennsylvania. We call ourselves the Tuscarora Intermediate Unit. That's the name for all service agencies in Pennsylvania. And actually, I recently met Julie and Amy. I couldn't think of it. Julie Young was our keynote speaker at the Women's Caucus conference that I planned for the state of Pennsylvania. So somehow I got this invitation and it sounded interesting and I wanted to participate. So here I am.
Awesome. Well, we are glad that you are. And this is perfect because it's nice and small. And Jill and I actually both work directly with Amy. Amy's our chief academic officer, and both of our departments go directly to her. So we heard about that great experience when she went up to Pennsylvania. So we are very happy that you decided to join us and are looking forward to spending the next couple of weeks with you. Have you had a chance to look at the course at all?
I have not. I just got the email, maybe yesterday or the day before. And I was out of the office most of the day today, so sorry.
No problem. Okay, I'm not going to quiz you. Just wanted to know so that I can share my screen a little bit towards the end and give you a little bit of feedback. The course is basically designed to fit your needs, so there's a lot of stuff in there, just so that you can kind of pick and choose what works best for you. There's videos, there's articles, and there's different things for you to pick and choose what is going to fit your needs. And I'll show you that towards the end so that you know how to navigate and find exactly what you need.
Okay. I do have one question.
Sure.
I can't remember if it's next week or the following week. There was one week that because of my schedule, I probably wouldn't be able to join live. So is it still, everything's going to be recorded and I'll be able to just listen? Is that still an option?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. What we're doing is we're offering the sessions twice, so in the afternoons on Tuesday and then Wednesdays, and then right after that I'll upload the recording. So if you aren't able to attend, you can listen to the recording, or if you want to hear another piece of the recording, it will be available there as well for you.
Great, thank you.
No problem. All right, so first off, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about GPA. I'm sure after hearing Julie and Amy, you have a good background, but just so that you know, we are pretty much learning solutions for schools. We try to cover every area that you may need help with, from offering courses to helping you with content development, to training, to learning management systems, to trainings that will help you develop programs that are successful with your school, and different programs just like this one. So just a little bit of background on GPA. There is more information in the course if you want to take a little bit further dive. And then we want to talk about how learning has changed over the years. So I found this image to be quite appropriate for how it used to be many, many, many years ago, and then how our classrooms are looking more and more like today. So you'll see a significant difference between where we were and where we are now. Nowadays, we're aiming more to make sure that our classrooms are tailored more to our students' individual needs. The blended learning also allows us to provide a very simple way for students to take different paths, but still arrive at a common destination. And then the formal education program is in which a student learns, at least in part, through an online component, and then the rest is going to be done in the classroom. But the student has control over a little bit of either the time, the pace, the path, or the space. And that's the real part that we want to focus in during our journey with the blended learning series, is how we give the students that control over that piece where they're empowered to actually take their learning and truly get into that piece of blended learning. So any questions or any thoughts on this view of the classrooms? And
No?
I was just going to say, sadly, everybody's still sitting. Lots of sitting going on in education.
I was just going to say, Jill, feel free to jump in. That is true, lots of sitting. We need to get, can you imagine, I'm just envisioning a classroom full of those walking, those new desks where everybody like walks on the treadmill. The classroom full of treadmills and computers would definitely be interesting. All right, so blended learning. Blended learning is not merely adding technology or a tutoring program. It certainly is not replacing teachers with computers. So what is blended learning? Well, for blended learning to be successful, there's a couple little pieces that we want to make sure that we add into it. It does definitely boost student achievement and quality of life through personalization. It does provide access to out-of-reach courses and opportunities for students. It does improve a school's system's financial health, and it does allow you to make a combination of all three of those. So all of those will help you make a successful blended learning environment. Now, there's lots of misconceptions on what a blended learning environment may look like. Some that it's just merely giving a student a computer and letting them do a project, or just basically giving them something, you know, like I said, just giving them a piece of technology and letting them work on it. For it to be a truly blended learning environment, we want to make sure that we're encompassing all the different pieces so that we can give students that ownership and make sure that they are personalizing and differentiating the instruction in order to own that piece of their learning. So blended learning is the design of collective learning assets that allow the teacher to deliver powerful, personalized learning experiences. And I want to stop for a second and talk about these keywords that we keep hearing. In the course, actually, I have an amazing article that I found on the differences between those three key buzzwords, which are differentiated learning, individualized learning, and personalized learning. So when we look at differentiated learning, that is intended to be instruction that is tailored to meet the learning needs, preferences, and goals of individual students. So it's basically the how, like how is the learning going to happen? When we look at individualized learning, that's when we look at the unique pace of various students. So that's the actual when of the learning. And then when we look at the personalized learning, that is when we tailor the preferences and interests of the various learners. So it's kind of everything put together. So it's the differentiated, the individualized learning, and that's what creates that personalized learning. So I know we tend to use all of those terms interchangeably, so I just wanted to pause for a second and go over those. And then we have what is blended learning. So to truly have a blended learning environment, we want to make sure that there's that face-to-face component along with that online component. And then that is what's going to make that perfect blended learning environment. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can infuse the online environment, and we are going to cover those different ways that you can do that today. But in order to make sure that you are developing the perfect program for your school, the first thing that you want to do is assess what are your needs. And when we go in the course, I'll show you a particular area where you can actually download a note section so that you can kind of jot down ideas and think of ways that you can start to plan for the blended learning environment. You want to start off by analyzing what your needs are. Then you want to design a customized program to address all of those needs that you may have at your school. Then you want to develop your plan so that you know exactly how you're going to implement it for next year. And then you start the implementation process. You also want to think of a way that you're going to evaluate your plan as you go along, because as we know, when we first develop something, it's never going to be perfect. So we definitely want to think of ways that you can make it better throughout and kind of have checkpoints throughout the way or throughout the steps so that you can make sure that you're modifying as needed and making sure that it's exactly what you want. So when you're creating a solution, a couple things that you want to keep in mind is you want to make sure you have a good strategy for staffing. You want to make sure that you have the right staff in place as far as the online piece or for the content pieces. You want to make sure that you have all of the devices that you may need. You want to make sure that you have all the content that you need, whether the teacher is going to provide it or it's something that you're going to get through a provider. You want to make sure that you have the facilities. So if you're going to have labs for the students or if you're going to have huge open rooms that they could use. You also want to make sure that you develop the model. And then you want to start establishing the culture, and that really is one of the biggest pieces of it. You want to make sure everybody's on board and everybody understands the importance of blended learning and how helpful it is for students. So let's talk a little bit first about the themes of blended learning. All of these are different ways that you can ensure that blended learning is going to be infused into your school, and then it's going to help your school or your district. So blended learning enhances the education in a way that traditional classrooms cannot, because it's adding in that extra piece that's so essential nowadays, because as we know, students are involved heavily with technology on a daily basis. So instead of giving it that one-size-fits-all picture that we saw at the beginning, you're truly using adaptive learning in a blended learning model to enable your students to master new concepts at their own pace. And then it provides your teachers data and instructional resources so that they can give their struggling students individualized attentions that they may need. You also, your blended learning program includes the collection of data and it recommends the next steps for teachers. So you want to use easy to access and simple to interpret data so that teachers can identify the different areas in which students can excel or struggle. You want to help teachers with instructional prioritization and strengthening interventions. And then you want to talk about your mobile technology that you're going to use. Are you going to use your laptops, your e-readers, your tablets? Are you going to have everything in a computer lab? Are you going to have computer carts? So e-learning can be expanded outside of the classroom. It can also be done either before or after school. And it can also be done at home. So if your students have computers at home, that's also a great way to infuse your blended learning technologies. Your blended learning provides additional support for teachers so that they can work with small groups of struggling students, and while other students are working independently on something else. Technology will never replace a teacher, and I think that's the most important thing to stress when we talk about blended learning. But it can definitely provide a lot of flexibility for a single teacher to support a class with a wide range of abilities. And what I love about blended learning is I keep thinking back to when I started teaching many years ago, and they told me I had to differentiate instruction. Well, I had no idea what that meant. So to me, I gave one side of the classroom the odds and the other side of the classroom the evens, and that was differentiation to me. So when I think about that now, I just think about, oh my goodness, that was terrible, right? It's hilarious, but to me that was perfect thinking back then. But there's so many things that you can do now and so much flexibility that would not be acceptable nowadays. So then we have our digital literacy, which is at the center of our Common Core standards. And according to NAEP, technology is becoming more than just the norm in our nation's schools, and certainly the way to communicate in college and the workplace. And if we just think about ourselves, like technology is so essential in everything that we do. So the first piece I want to look at is the engagement piece. So when we're talking about blended learning, in order to engage our students, there's so many things that we can do. But when you're looking at the online component, You can use multimodal and dual modal instruction to emphasize different parts of the course and make sure that you are tapping into all the different learning styles in your classrooms. You can use different modes to represent the content knowledge. You can use verbal and nonverbal. Most effective designs for learning adapt to include a variety of media. So you can use a combination of modalities, levels of interactivity, learner characteristics, and lots of different pedagogies to make sure that every single student in your class, you are meeting their individual needs. When students are presented with these multimodal options, they are provided the opportunity to become agents of their own learning. So they have the responsibility of their learning, which in turn makes them more motivated to engage in further literacy practices that support new ways of learning. So the benefits just keep going from there. So it's kind of a domino effect. You know, you're giving the students the power and they want to keep going, and they just keeps getting better. You can also include simulations which would give you the opportunity to bring different things to life that students may not be able to see in just the regular classroom. And then you can flip that around and actually use real tools when you have them face-to-face. So if you are teaching a math course, you could use manipulatives in the classroom and use real-world applications to teach them different concepts. And again, it goes back to that student control. Students are much more engaged when they can control the time, the pace, the place, and the path of the course. The next piece is that differentiated instruction, and that's where we look at the adaptive content. That can be done either manually or automated. You can also set it so that it is released by student needs or by student interest. And again, that differentiated instruction goes back to students being able to control their pace. The next piece we all know about is that high quality assessment. With the assessments, when the students are in the online component of blended learning, they get instantaneous feedback on objective-based assessments. You can develop project-based learning with real-world tools, and they can facilitate and collaborate online, but then they can also turn that around and do it in the classroom. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You have mastery-based adaptive content, so you can go releasing content by proving mastery. So showing increasing gains in achievement over those in traditional institution programs. So when you're looking at an online blended environment, the online component is going to give you that competency-based. So the students actually have to persevere through the actual unit and make sure they understand every piece in order to be successful, rather than just saying, okay, well, I spent enough time in the unit and I'm done. So it definitely gives you competency-based piece that allows for successful student lost the word. Successful student completion, I guess would be the correct term. Then we have our 21st century skills that we want to make sure we are infusing in everything that we do. We have our creativity and innovation, communication and collaboration, research and information, and digital citizenship and research and information. These are all things that we ensure that our students are prepared for as they go into the real world. And with a blended learning environment, they are definitely going to be exposed to all of these. The next thing is our efficiency level. From a teacher's perspective and from a student perspective, in a blended environment, your efficiency level definitely goes up. There's some assignments that you can do automated grading and the students can get instantaneous feedback. The data analysis is a lot easier to see because it can be right there in your gradebook. You can have asynchronous instruction, and then there's all the information storage. For example, when you're going through this course, you'll see that there's lots of information storage, and you don't necessarily have to see everything. It's kind of a pick and choose, but it's there for you. So it's similar to what we would hope for our students. Once you've kind of set in your mind that you want to set that blended learning environment in your school or district, and you know what you want to do, and you have all your needs assessment, one of the first things that you have to do is establish what type of blended learning model you want to have. These are just a couple, and these are taken from the Blended book by Michael Horn. And I'll just give you a couple of examples here. The first one is a station rotation, and you'll notice here that there's groups of students. Over here, there's a couple of students working on the computer, so they are doing their online environment piece or their online learning piece. Then you have some students that are working with a teacher and they're doing their actual learning. And then over here, you have some that are doing some modeled work, and it looks like maybe they are with another teacher or with a teacher's aide. So research has found that the station rotation blended learning model boosted the average high school student's performance by 8% in 2 years, which is pretty cool. Now, this is an elementary class, and this is typical in an elementary course, but I've seen it done in a high school course, and it is amazing the results that you'll see because it is just as effective. So unfortunately, we kind of stray away from this model as the kids get older, but it's just as effective the older they get. So this is a great model to implement in the classroom. Another model that you can implement is the flipped classroom. And the flipped classroom is when the students actually watch the lessons at home and then come to class to actually review it afterward. So in this instance, you'll see all the students who are watching the lessons, and they can either watch them at home or in a lab. And then after they watch the lesson is when they ask for the teacher's assistance. So this is another model that you can use in a lab. We also have a flex model. And this one, you'll notice, is a lot bigger because there's a lot of groups going on. With this one, the students are moving through the course pretty much at their own pace. So they're receiving instruction online, but they're also receiving that teacher-guided instruction. The main difference between that flex model and that station rotation is that in the flex model, the groups are a lot bigger. And sometimes there's even more than one facilitator or teacher that's able to go around and help the students. Then we have the a la carte model. And this is where the students take the course completely online, and they still attend a brick-and-mortar school. So they may be taking some courses on campus, like let's say they may take their math and science course with a live teacher on campus, and then they may be taking their English and social studies course online. However, they still go to a lab to complete the course. So when I did this, it was in a virtual lab, and there was a teacher online that would help the students virtually, and then there was a facilitator on campus with them, kind of just to monitor the students and make sure that they were on pace and doing what they were supposed to be doing. But the kids were all working on their own pace, and they finished the course on their own while their online teacher was there to monitor their work and make sure that everything was going on. So this is another popular model that can be done. And then there's the enriched virtual model. This one requires that face-to-face learning, but then allows the students to complete the work online wherever they prefer. So they are able to go off and complete it during lunch or in a lab or at home. It gives them that flexibility. So I'm going to pause for just a second and see if you have any questions on the different models or anything that we discussed about blended learning. Tracy, his name is Michael Horn. He wrote the book Blended. I actually have some awesome information about him in our course. He's one of our board members, and that is a phenomenal book. It's truly one of those books that's like a game changer in education because it helps you to see things from a different perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've been putting a lot of stuff in our course about him because he's just phenomenal. I know Jill's a big fan of his book as well because, yeah, I could not put it down the day that I started reading it. So, yep. Okay, so I want to go into the course real quick and show you a couple of things. So let me share my screen. Okay, so when you go into your course, let me log in as a student. It's probably not gonna be as busy as mine because you only have one course. But you're gonna see the tile that takes you into our course, which is the GPA Blended Learning Summer Series. This is actually the Buzz Learning Management System if you're not familiar with it. The first page just talks to you about our course and just reminds you about our weekly meetings. And then over here on the left-hand side, you're gonna find two folders. The first folder is Welcome to Your Blended Learning Summer Series. The first one is just a little bit information about our course, and then you can just navigate to the next page by selecting the arrow. This one takes you to our GPA page so that you can learn a little bit more about us. And then you'll start to go into some videos. I put the first video you'll come across is Julie's video. She did a TED Talk many years ago when she was still with Florida Virtual School, but it is an amazing video. And I have it in here for you so that you can view it if you like. And then you'll see a couple videos from Michael Horn. For some reason, it's not loading, maybe because I'm screen sharing, but they'll pop up right here for you because I did put the link to pop up. So you'll have a couple of his TED Talks that pop up here for you in this first folder. And then in the second folder, we talk about everything blended learning. So the first thing you'll look at is some questions and some thinking about introduction to blended learning. And then we have some notes that you can look at based on what we talked about today. I have some articles that were used in today's presentation. Then I have another folder that's titled Helpful Resources. And in here, you'll find blended learning samples. So this gives you just an overview of different samples that you can use. Some good reads, so just some nice articles that you can look at. I also have some good watches that you can look at. These are videos that are about blended learning. So I have a couple there for you. And then there's like to participate so that we can communicate with one another. So each week a new folder will pop up for you depending on what we're discussing that week. So any questions on the information in the course?
Will the folders stay there even after that week's class is over? I'm not asking this the right way. So if I don't get to this folder within a few days of the class itself, will that folder still be there when the next folder appears?
Yes, that's a great question. It will definitely stay there. Actually, course is designed each week you'll get a new folder, but the old folder doesn't disappear, and you'll have all 5 folders available for you for the summer. So a couple weeks even after the session ends, you'll still have availability into the folders in the course. Yeah, and before the course actually closes, I will definitely notify you in case there's anything in there that you want to save or bookmark. Great. Well, awesome. It's 3:58, so we were perfect on time. I don't want to keep you for too much longer. It was so nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to spending a couple more weeks with you. If there's anything that you have questions on or anything that you would like to look at or that you have questions on, or you've thought, oh, I really wish I could look at this a little bit nicer or a little bit deeper, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to readjust if we need to and make sure that we're meeting your needs specifically.